Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Living Ascension. So this is a great topic because we come across it a lot. I don't think we've actually talked about this specifically, like it's been incorporated with other stuff.
Right. Yeah, it seems to have a different twist on it this week, or a different shade, if you will.
Yes. Oh my goodness. See, I'm already yawning.
Right.
And so it came up actually, a week ago, right? And you said that you kept on coming up across the belief that you couldn't break the rules.
Right. I was challenged financially and was on my way to accomplish what I needed to purchase. And I kept saying, I can do this. I can make whatever it is I need to be affordable. And I just ran into this brick wall in my head that, well, no, you can't, because that's just goes against our economy, and that goes against, why we're here. And that is just, you just can't do that. That's not what we agreed. And I felt really judged.
Mm-hmm.
And what occurred to me this morning is something that didn't occur to me then, but occurs to me now, is that if I do that, that means that I'm taking advantage of someone. And that if I have that, someone has to do without.
Right. That's the belief of finite resources, right? Yes.
Right.
And that's a big one when you're doing stuff having to do with like abundance, prosperity and whatever, that we believe that for us to have a lot means somebody has to have less, right? So then
Right.
it's like,
well, and if you look at it in terms of how we've defined our economy, it's supply and demand.
right.
It's renewable resources and non-renewable resources. And I mean, it's become a belief system, if you will, is that, it functions this way and there is no other option.
Right.
And if you are going to do your part, you'll stick to these rules.
Well, and that even happens. So, all right. So that's really practical, right?
Right. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning. Yeah. What was the example that we came up with when we were talking on Friday? Because I was like, oh, this is such a really good example. We have to talk about it. Do you remember what it was? And why did I not write it in my notes? I have no idea.
Oh, maybe I did. I don't think so,
anyway,
but maybe.
So, we can see that, and, we talk about this, we build so much in our entire consciousness and culture and what surrounds us with following the rules of the laws, and we create the laws. And it's funny because when I took there was another practice that I was certified in and whatever, and they were in this particular practice, there was an entire plane set of dimensions that were all the laws of the universe as we created them, like literally a personification of laws. And I actually have visited that plane, right?
Right.
And it was fascinating. I remember. And, and so it's like, okay, however we want to see it, it doesn't matter, right? It's still the way we divide it up in our own consciousness. So it's our own illusions of how we organize it, right?
Well, and how we make sense of this.
Right. Good morning, Gloria. So what we do is, we do agree at some level to create, in the physicality of this multiverse, we did agree to abide by certain principles, abide by certain laws, create the laws, create these, and they were just structures of limitations so that we could create something in a confined container, right?
Right. Good morning, Yasmin.
Yeah, good morning, Yasmin. And so we created all that. And we have, the laws of physics. We have, the laws of motion, the laws
The
of
laws
energy,
of nature.
laws of nature. We have all kinds of stuff like that, right? And so when we think the word law, we think this is absolute. You cannot break this law or else you are gonna be punished, right? Look at what we have, like that's the whole thing in government, right? You break the law, you get punished. So the first thing for us to recognize is it's all an illusion, right? The other thing is when I was going down that path years ago, and I was I was doing this other practice, and there was that whole consciousness of this entire plane of laws, right? And at one point I had this conversation out there, and it was like, well, like there is literally a part of our consciousness that is like the administrator of these are the laws I'm going to abide by, and these are the laws I'm not going to abide by. And we change them because they are variable. Like no matter what we call a law, everything is variable.
Right. And I mean, even if you look at science, science is constantly learning.
Right.
And so those laws evolve and they change, and you come to a new understanding.
Right.
So it doesn't have the rigidity that we think it does.
Right. Well, and laws change constantly, right? Like in our whatever, like we know sometimes they go forward, sometimes they go backwards in perception, depending on who you're talking about, right? What you're talking about. But the thing is, like, and so we have like the law of gravity, right? We have the laws of motion and I can't even think of all the physics terms and stuff. But then you have like all kinds of stuff that we've created in the physicality of this multiverse, right? So now what we're doing and we have so many layers of laws, like so, and in those laws, because we've agreed to we've said, I will abide by this to be physical in this form, to be physical in this,
right, and to participate within this space.
Right. So now we're changing the game, right? And in changing the game, we are remembering that these laws are fluid, and these laws are actually a choice to abide by or not abide by, right? Well, there's a part of us consciously, collectively, and individually that goes, what? When I say that, right? Because you're like, no, because that would just make chaos.
Right. And I would not be living up to what my commitment.
Right.
I would not be a good person because I wouldn't be doing what I said I would do.
Right. So
and there's so much around that. I need to be a good person.
Well, and that goes back to the original function of what's good, right? What's good and bad. That's all a judgment through the ego, and it's all a filter of. So we vilify those who break the law. Look at what we do in culture. We vilify those who break the law. We put them in prison.
Or even those that break rules that aren't necessarily laws, but they're like social norms. And then it's a much more subtle ostracizing of, well, you're just not accepted, and you're not worthy of participating with us, and you don't deserve to be included.
And we hate that idea, right? We feel like the exclusion was that creation of the me and not me, and the ego, and the feeling like there's something excluded from who I am and what I am.
Right.
So when we have that, brought back to us, that's like one of our deepest motivators is to stay included, right?
Right.
Well,
because if you're not included, you're not loved.
Right. Or worthy of love, right?
Right.
And so, well, this goes like, we really drill down quickly to really the core of what it's all about. And so our motivations are, I can break some rules, but not these, because then I won't be included, or I'll be ostracized, or I'll be exiled, and I won't be loved, or I won't be valuable. I'll be punished, right? We believe all this. And I believe I'm worthy to be punished if I break these laws, right? So when we go to that, we have this whole thing that goes around, what it's like in this set of dimensions, right? And our physical culture and society and community and, and marriages and families and all that kind of stuff. But then you get to in consciousness, you get to out there.
Right. Right.
And you get to this whole, level of, whatever, you're talking about the Council of 12s, you're
Right.
talking about elders, you're talking about this. And then if we present ourselves with that out there in consciousness, and then we feel like we're ostracized by that, right? That's
Right.
still ego, by the way, right? So
It is.
and so then we feel like, oh no, I have crossed the line and I
Right.
can't cross the line.
Right.
I can't do
Right.
that. Right. So
I
we
can't be seen for doing that.
right. And so then because then I will be excluded. Then I'll miss the bus, right? I will not have played the game right. I will have ruined the whole thing. I will, like there's so many implications, right? So we weigh ourselves down with all of this guilt, all of this, external evaluation by, oh, well.
Well, and it feeds the waiting game. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to wait till a bunch of others agree that that it's okay to break this rule. And so there's that safety in numbers. And, we can attribute that to getting to, what is it, critical mass, where 51% are at that point to facilitate that shift.
Right.
And
Right.
it's like, so I'm just going to wait till everybody's right there on the edge, and then we'll all go together. And it's that safety.
Right. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna go. Yeah, you go first. And it's like, and it's those of us who have been on the front end, right? That then it's like, oh, you're crazy, you're kooky, you're woo woo, you're this, you're that.
Right.
To, oh well, that's just mainstream now. It's really funny how it shifts over time, right?
It is. It is.
And so, when we start, or when we get guidance, so that goes back to what we have talked about a bajillion times, right? Which is guidance. Go back to guidance,
Right.
and we have a whole course on going back to guidance, on making sure that's what you're listening to, right? Listening
Right.
to that above the ego saying you should, you shouldn't, you can't, you have, like, if guidance says do this, I do it. Right. And it's like, how many times we've been like on a retreat or out in like sacred places, and it's like guidance was do this, like go do this, even though like others are like, oh no, you can't go past this line, you can't go back this, and it's like, oh no, but I'm being guided to do it, so I did it.
Right.
And then you feel
And not
guilty.
following guidance, you get booted.
Right.
And you have no choice but to follow that guidance.
Right. Right. And every time it's like, oh well, yeah, follow this until now do this.
Right. Right.
So, and so the thing is to let go of our judgment, because then what happens is, oh my gosh, I feel guilty if I broke a rule. Or like, here's the thing, when we accept, we create infinitely, right? There is an infinite amount of resources available in infinite amounts of ways. Like you were talking about with the, like, say, financial, right?
Right.
We can say, I can have an infinite amount of money and it doesn't take away from anybody.
Right. Well, and what I found myself arguing in my head is, the feeling that, first of all, no, if you do that, you're going to break the economy. If you don't follow these rules, you'll break the economy. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, but it's already broken.
Right.
It's already broken. And it's one of those things where it was like, well, that's why, because the rules were artificially enforced. The
Mhm.
rules were there they didn't serve our purpose right here, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like I was wanting to take the responsibility of continuing that behavior because I didn't want to break the economy that's already broken.
Right. Right. And, it's like, okay, well, there have been plenty of time, like, and here's the other thing. What about what we consider the human condition, right? That's a big one, right? We talk
Right,
about this
right.
a lot. How much it's like we have agreed at some level to have a what we consider a human condition, which is a condition that we're weak, that we are, susceptible to illness, injury, all that kind of stuff. That,
Pandemics.
yeah, right. That we need, that we're frail, that we need to age, right?
Right, right.
Like, and so what happens when we stop prescribing to that, and everybody around us still is, that's where I have found the biggest guilt, right? It's like, like, I have nothing to complain about. I'm good.
Right, right.
And then everybody's like, oh, well, I have this ache and I have that ache and I have this problem and I'm having this problem. And there's so much connection on, the frailty of the human body and, how it's breaking down and else kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm fine.
Yeah, and I find it interesting how, I know when I was growing up, it was you'd hear, oh, so and so, all they do is drone on about all they do is complain or this or this. And now it's almost like flip-flopped to where
Yes.
if you don't complain and you've got nothing negative to say, nobody wants to hang around you because you just remind them.
Oh, your head's just in the clouds all the time.
Right, right.
Get your head out of the clouds and see what things are really like.
Or you're just not compassionate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That one I get all the time.
You're not compassionate, or you just don't live in the real world.
Yes, that one too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing of, well, because you're breaking the rules of
Exactly.
the condition, right?
Right.
Which says we have to age, we have to have ailments, and we've added those things in, I think, like, a lot, very obviously in the past several decades. But and it's getting more and more. So when you say, yeah, I'm good, most people don't know how to.
Right. What do they talk to you about? How do they connect? Because that's where they connect.
And it's funny because, like, somebody I know who is very stuck in that negativity, on the rare occasion that I talk to them anymore, right? They'll be
Right.
like, they'll go through all their stuff. Well, what's going on with you? Nothing, I'm doing great.
Right.
And then there's like silence, like they're waiting. And then they think I'm hiding something, which is even funnier. It's sort of like,
Right. Well, you're just not talking about it.
right, you're just not talking about it. And so, but that's part of the self-work and the coming to the self-love, coming to the recognition of like where I am right now. And also like getting past the judgment. And that's the whole forgiveness course that we have, right? The whole
Right.
cycle of forgiveness, the apology, forgiveness, acceptance, embracing, and having gratitude for everything as it's been
Right.
presented, even if it's not been what the ego has considered a pleasant experience. So when we change all the way we perceive and interact with and are present in the world, well, then we change our entire set of agreements on how we are to interact with it, right? So
Right. We change our participation.
Mhm. Right. And that's actually, so that's another point too. We talk a lot in like energy work about agreements, soul agreements too. And those we consider, in many ways, we consider laws as well. Like, because we're like, oh no, I have to carry this lesson through this way with this person in this manner because we agreed to it.
Right. Just like family, ancestry.
Yes. Ancestry is a big one. Familial, generational agreements that
Right.
we have to learn these kind of lessons this way.
And that we supposedly carry in our genes, which automatically mean you have no choice but to embody this.
Right.
And that's not the case.
It's not. And when you say, nope, thank you, right. There have been times, I remember one time there was a client and it was hysterical because we did some kind of, I don't even remember what it was about, but it was some kind of very heavy generational agreement, right? That had been going on for a while. And I could just see the line almost all the way down to the DNA kind of thing.
Right.
And so we were doing we were doing a shifting of that. And when we were out there in the ethers together and we were releasing it or whatever, there was this little, I remember laughing because it was like this little old lady comes up to me with this big purse and whacks me with the purse going, "What are you doing?
Right.
You can't let her do that." And I was like, "Yes, I can." And I thought, I almost started laughing in the middle of the session. And it was just so funny that I literally had and could feel like a purse like sort of like hitting me. And I was like, wow, that's pretty funny, but
Right.
and that's the beliefs that we have about, no, if you don't abide by these agreements, then what are you doing to this universe? You're screwing the whole thing up.
Right. Right.
So, it's an interesting, yeah, it's an interesting, and there's a show that I was just watching on Prime called Undone. That's been really interesting in terms of traveling through different timelines and different uh, versions of yourself, right?
Right.
And others going, "Oh no, you're going to ruin this by changing this, or you're going to ruin this by changing this." It's like, no, they all exist. All these versions of me exist that made all of these choices. So there was no wrong choice.
Right.
It's just where I'm choosing to exist right now, right? That's ultimately what it came down to, which I thought, yeah, that's what we've been talking about. I love it. So, and that's the thing. We talk about laws and rules and agreements. Like if we don't follow them, there's going to be some massive punishment or there's going to be
Right.
some massive fallout or massive
For
consequence.
repercussion.
Right. And it's like, well, maybe there is. Maybe sometimes the repercussion needs to happen to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. And
Right.
sometimes, and if you look at the option of that, we carry out all possibilities, right, in different versions of ourselves, different timelines. There is no wrong answer. There is no wrong, choice. So why not make all of them and allow yourself to do it without like saying, I can't do that at all, because that would be breaking this rule, right?
Yep.
It's almost like, plus there's a part of us that loves breaking the rules.
Yes, there is.
That goes, oh, but I know, like you said, not to press that red button, that blinking red button, no matter what, unless it was an absolute emergency.
How could I not? How could I not do that?
Right. Or you figure out, how can I do it and get away with it?
Right.
Yeah.
Or how can I justify doing it?
I remember when I was a kid, we had a boiler in the basement, like a lot of houses did back then, right? And I remember at the top of the stairs to the basement, there was a switch, and the switch plate was red, right? And it was like, when I was a kid, it was like, don't ever flip that switch. Like they made me believe that the house would blow up if I ever flipped that switch. And really, I think all it did was turn off the boiler,
Right.
But I like all when I was a kid, like I would look at that switch and be like, well, what if I just did it once? What would happen? Like, like seriously, the worst thing to tell a kid, especially, don't do that. Just don't do
Right.
that.
Right.
Because then curiosity gets you. But then that's the whole thing. That's the whole, duality exploration or whatever. And then we have others who are the other way. Other people are like, oh no, I just won't go near that with a 10-foot pole because that's breaking the rules. And so we have some energies here, and I want to say energy is not necessarily, well, it's part of our consciousness. So there are some energies here that are embodied as individuals who are really set on making sure the laws, the rules are followed to the T, right?
Yeah.
And there are others who are like, yeah, screw the rules. And there's most of us who are all in between.
Right. Right. And I know I've changed a lot. I used to be I used to define myself for following the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized at some point that those rules that I were following were essentially those that I bought into, because there were those rules that I didn't follow, but yet I saw myself as a rule follower. So as I evolved my belief in who I was, it really changed my thoughts about rule followers. And I see, especially with the polarity in the world right now,
Mm-hmm.
that those that claim to be following the rules are only following their rules,
Right.
and that the opposition is only following their rules. And so they're all rule followers.
Right. And if you just say, so here's the thing, when you get to the place of saying, I'm just going to listen, my only rule is listening to my guidance.
Right.
That's my only rule.
And knowing that is so fluid. I think that is one of the biggest keys, is the more you know yourself, the more you connect in with that guidance, and the more that becomes a in the moment, in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And as you focus and stay in your presence, the guidance is just, it's seamless with
Mm-hmm.
your behavior and your rule following, for that matter. The only rule is that you follow your guidance.
Right. Right. And so, we have our entire, I remember, so going back to that whole thing of like the whole investigating and going out there and connecting with this whole plane that deals with the rules of the universe. And I remember asking, well, so like, how many laws am I abiding by right now? And it was like some crazy number, like millions.
Right.
And I'm like, well, how many of them I'm going to do that? Like, and so my understanding from when I went through that exploration was that we choose to, like in every lifetime or iteration, we choose to, these are the ones I'm going to follow, and these are the ones I'm going to not follow. Because that's part of the duality, right? And saying, okay, well, these will be fun to follow, and it'll be fun if we just don't do these, right? And see what happens with that.
Well, and that's what holds, it's almost like that's what holds you in that space to create that timeline, that version of you in that moment,
right.
with all these things created by you, attached to you, moving, illusion of moving through time.
Right. So part of what I've just learned has been a good navigation of the whole thing is to, number one, get to a place of accepting that there are some rules and laws that we agree to stay with. There are some as part of our physicality, and while we still have this, right? And there's many that we choose to, and I believe we're just choosing to get rid of a lot more, like discarding a lot more as we go, right? So
yeah.
So the key is not to put, like, the key is, I believe, is to come to that gratitude for no judgment or resentment on what I'm choosing to abide by and what I'm choosing not to abide by. But also the biggest point is that it's a choice. And if you choose not to do it, it's not a punishment. It's not a punishment.
Right.
And that's what we believe is like, oh no. And yeah, how many people I've heard in a spiritual one was like, oh no, well, blah, blah, blah. And I was going to do this. And then the Council of 12 told me this and da, da, da. And now, like, no, I have to do this. Nope. The question to ask is, did your guidance tell you to or not?
Right.
I will say, from a consciousness standpoint, in the beginning of all of this, and I was called to Council of 12s a number of times. And there were a number of times that I was sort of admonished out there because I did not follow the plan. And I was like, it worked though, what I did worked. So, but that's this whole, and I believe that that's a part of our own consciousness going, like, it makes me think of Bugs Bunny. Well, we step over this line, we step over this line.
Right.
What about this one? And so the key is, and we create the lines because we want to see contrast. That's what duality is about, right? So we can absolutely change rules. We can absolutely change laws. We can absolutely break them.
And I think as a first step is, where am I limiting myself by my belief that I have to do something a certain way, or I
Right.
have to follow a certain set of guidelines, or I have, anytime, where am I imposing have to in my reality, in my
Right.
choices?
Right. I have to have this much money in the bank. I have to make this much money. I have to, if I make this amount of money, I have to be this kind of person. I have
Right.
to,
Or I have to protect myself from negative energies,
right.
or I have to protect myself, from those who don't believe the same as I do.
Yeah. Or I have to prioritize my things this way to be a valuable person. Right. In
Right.
society, those are rules and rules that we've created, right?
Or I can only connect in with my guidance through these crystals, or
This practice, or yeah.
right, this ritual.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's almost like that identifies a set of rules we've created in expanded consciousness to
Yeah.
hold us at that place, with
Right.
the rituals, which that we've talked about a lot.
And a lot of the things I feel like, oh, this is a big one that's sort of coming in right now, is one of the biggest things that we have done most of the time. Excuse me. Oh, I keep on yawning this morning. This must be a really big topic. But is the rule that we would forget that it's all us, that it's all one consciousness. That's a big one, right? And as we let go of that and say, no, I remember you and I are the same. I remember that I'm the same as the Council of 12, that I am the same as this presence, right? This archangel, this ascended master, this blah, blah, that it's all me. It's all me.
Right.
It starts to, because then what happens is then it starts to dilute this idea,
that power,
the fear of, I need to abide by this because so-and-so said this.
right?
The council said this, the elder said this, the blah, blah, blah said this. Well, yeah, that was me. So I'm just telling myself.
Right.
And so, and then think about how we kick ourselves in the butt if we feel like we've broken the rules sometimes, right?
Right.
Or what we do sometimes is we create new challenges in our realities when we have decided to not abide by this set of rules and expectations. So we will create something over here and then be like, okay, in my penance, I'll do this over here.
Right. Right.
I'll take on a chronic illness, or I will have to take care of this in my reality, or this other person, or whatever, so that I have the freedom over here. And it's like we're negotiating with ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Or to be free to do this, to be free to do this, I'm going to anchor myself down in chains with this.
Right. It's that, again, and I believe it comes back to that limited resource. Like I can, if I'm gonna, like you squeeze a balloon, if you squeeze this end gets bigger.
Right.
And it's like, it's not that I can have more and everyone can have more. It's that belief that there's a price to pay.
Yes. And so when we realize the only price we pay are the prices that we put on ourselves,
that we create,
right? And so it's funny because you can, when you start to allow yourself to do that, you can simply just opt out. Oh yeah, no, I'm opting out. And it's no consequence, right? When you recognize, and it's like no judging the, I've agreed to abide by this, and now, yep, I'm opting out right now. I don't believe that serves my journey and what I am to do. And I'm going to allow all options beyond all laws and rules. Ooh, that feels yummy, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I think that might be our clearing today. And because that in itself,
there's so much potential that we just automatically keep away from ourselves, deny ourselves because it's beyond the rules.
well, how many times we say, oh, that's just not for me. It's not in my cards.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, you can create that. You can change it. Right. One of my favorite things is, you know, I had a student once who said that they were going to get, this was funny. On one side of the wrist, they were going to have, did you ask? Right. And on the other
Right.
side of the wrist, they're going to have, you can change this, because those are my two like mantras that I always tell people. Did you ask your guidance? And you can change anything.
Right.
So if you don't like it, change it. Right. But to do that is for us to really come to that place of saying, no, I see that I had abided by that before, and I'm just opting out now. And I can do that free of any punishment, like in freedom, and know that it's okay. It's just a choice. And when we come to that place of recognizing that our abiding by rules, laws, and all that kind of stuff is our choice all the time, at the highest power in the highest way. And that, because look at, I mean, good grief, we created a whole idea of hell just to try to limit and control.
Create incentive to behave.
Yes. And follow the rules, follow the laws.
Right.
Or whatever the laws are for whatever particular hell you're talking about.
Right. Right.
So when we do that, it is really, truly creative. So the thing is, first of all, believe. All right. So this is coming to our clearing for today. A is coming to the place to recognize I choose to abide by or not abide by, I abide by or discard any rules or laws as fits my bigger picture. Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I can do so free of consequence. I can do so free of punishment. I'm free to do that at my leisure.
Right.
In easy and flowing way, that it can be easy, that there doesn't need to be any, consequence or I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of that comes up from it. So that's the first thing, is to free ourselves from that belief that, we've got to abide by blah, blah, blah. That breaking it is going to cause some kind of punishment or consequence, right? That I can do
repercussion.
Right. So number one is that being able to see or to recognize that we identify that I'm choosing to abide by what I abide by, and that I can choose to be free of that and not have, and be free to go along my merry way in any way I choose without any repercussion. The second part is that then I allow myself to create in the most incredible, expansive, fun, whatever, joyous, prosperous, vibrantly healthy way, whatever way, beyond the rules and laws and whatever, in a way that is completely fulfilling my potential. And I can abide, and in whatever way I choose to abide by, and whatever way I choose not to abide by, is all equally potent and powerful and complete.
That's a lot.
Rolled up into a nice little bow.
Right.
Yeah.
All very succinct.
Yes. All right. So as we all know, to everybody take a deep breath, get comfortable. We're going to hold ourselves in that vibration, and we step out of separation back in wholeness and oneness, and we hold ourselves at the vibration where that is our truth. That is from where we exist, create, and experience. Let's go. All right. That was a lot in a short period of time.
It really was.
Oh, I need to go sit in that for a little bit because it was funny. There was a whole bunch of things unwinding and like sort of turning offline and opening up, and that was really interesting. Felt really nice though. Like it was like, oh, like a burden taken off the shoulders kind of thing.
Yeah, initially I saw myself standing there and all the doors that the rules created flew open. And it was like, I don't know what commercial it was or when it was, but it was like, when there's loud music and it blows the hair back.
Right, right.
I felt like the amount that just bombarded me was overwhelming. And I was like, or it cannot be.
Right.
Just like we limit what colors we see with these eyes. And it's
Yes.
like, and I felt like all of those limitations were I don't want to say removed, but became a choice.
Yes. Conscious
And
choice. Yes.
right. And it went from unconscious to conscious. And it was like, oh, I totally see this now.
Right.
So there's a lot of new possibilities now.
Oh yeah. Yes. Yep. Well, lots to play with this week on that.
Right. Right. I mean, even just from a very simple perspective of where you're limiting yourself.
Right. And and what your motivations are. Because a lot of times, like what you're talking about originally, what came up, that's a very subconscious belief, right?
Right.
Like, and that's a deep one for many in terms of like financial abundance, prosperity, whatever is that for me to have more means for somebody else to have less. So I'm a bad person by taking away from somebody else versus there's an infinite amount for everybody.
Right. 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 Which, even translates further to, I'm divine and so are you.
Right.
And that there is no hierarchy there.
Right. And I can create infinitely and you can create infinitely the same or differently. And that's fine. It's great.
Right.
That's
Right.
the purpose. Yeah. That's perfect.
Right.
So
Yes. So let us know what you come up with. Let us know what you experience in this whole changing of thought process.
yeah. Yep. And please like and share. Share it with others. Share it on your feed or in social media or whatever with others that will benefit from this because I believe that all of us do. And it's funny because like what happens is we are so entrained with this. Like what I heard out there too is like, well, what about this? And what about this? Well, what about this? That's bad. That's bad. If somebody does this, that's bad. Right. And it's like, no. That's taking away the good and the bad. That's the whole forgiveness and getting to a place of acceptance of, it's actually really acceptance to everything's
Right.
perfect. Even if you don't see it in that moment. And it's like, so the first step is getting rid of that idea that things are good and bad, because then you take away the idea of, oh, if you break this rule, it's bad.
Yes.
Right. Even if it causes a substantial shift in something you did not anticipate, that doesn't make it bad. It makes it uncomfortable sometimes, right?
Or unexpected.
And unexpected. And so it's like, oh, well, how many times we've said, oh, I wish I hadn't done that because that caused this entire avalanche of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, right, but that avalanche had to happen.
Right. Right. It's like things may fall apart to fall together in a completely unexpected way, which in the long run might be so much better.
I saw out there too, there is something about, no crap, I just totally forgot what it was again when you just said that. Oh well, I just get so like out there.
Right. Right.
I saw somebody it was like somebody came over and reached over and they pulled two little like implants out behind my left ear. And I was like, oh, I forgot those were there. And it was like, blah, blah, it was funny. God, what was I gonna say? Yeah. Anyway, I lost what I was gonna say about it because it had to do with what you just said. But I lost it. So
Oh, things falling apart to fall together completely different.
yeah, it's and when we do that, is for us to lose the judgment on, well, because we were trying to control, or that was the point of the feeling of getting ourselves to the place of setting our creations beyond laws and rules, right? To say, I can manifest this. And if the way that I would like to do it is with, ease and joy and fun, and that breaks the rules because we believe we have to do that, then so be it. And I can do that free of any, whatever repercussion.
Consequence, right?
Be okay with that. We create challenges in our realities because we believe many times because we believe we deserve to be punished for something we've done in another life or in this life or whatever. So food for thought. So those are things to shift this week and be conscious of. Like and share, comment, please, and come back next time.
Right.
So thank you for joining us. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
signing off with this week's Living Ascension. Have a great one, everyone.